Now, one of our students in the WLMA actually had this question, and I wanted to ask you this as well. So she said, "Hi, WLMA community. My husband and I are thinking through the idea of me offering boudoir photo shoots exclusively for our brides so we can generate additional revenue from boudoir album sales and add value for our couples. Any tips on how to get started? Like, did everyone start with professional models or do a model call?" So yeah, Charlene, what would your advice be for her?
So I
But yeah, Charlene, excited to have you on the WLMA and Weddings and Wine podcast, and just want to introduce on some of the things that you've accomplished since we've started working together in the WLMA. One of my favorite parts is, you lived in New York, you had to move to Tennessee, and you had to figure out how you're going to grow your business, from scratch pretty much. When you moved to Tennessee, you're able to build a six-figure wedding photography business really quickly. You built an awesome associate brand, a luxury boudoir brand. You recently had a $14,000 month in August. Really awesome stuff. But let's dive into some of the good stuff so our viewers can really get to know you. Tell me a little bit more about your story, how you got into the photography business, and really where you are today.
Sure, thank you for having me. I started photography about 18 to 20 years ago. Yes, and I started getting into weddings. I had somebody come into the portrait studio, and he said he was looking for help with weddings. And like I said, that was about 18 years ago, and I started shooting with him, second shooting. Then he made me a lead photographer. So I did that for quite a few years, and then I just started getting weddings on my own.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And I guess when it came to really building the business, where it is today, what were some of the key strategies that got you where you are today in your business? Maybe what those strategies were when it was in New York, what it looked like when you came to try to grow it in Tennessee, etc.
Absolutely. I think one of the key factors to becoming successful was to kind of put the pride aside and learn. When I was second shooting, I remember thinking it's, $50 a wedding. I think I got up to 150 after a few years, but I was being paid to learn.
Yeah,
Like, putting my pride aside and just really soaking in everything that I could. I'm still friends with the guy that I was working with, and we
that's
still
awesome.
crack up, because I thought I knew everything. But yeah, putting your pride aside and, be willing to work for, chump change, because there's nothing more valuable than working alongside someone who's been there and done it.
Yeah, so a big part in when to figuring out how to grow your business when you were in New York
Yeah.
was pretty much taking a close mentorship with the guy who took you under his wing, learning the ins and outs of the way he ran his business. When it was in New York, pretty much, did you grow it? I know you were there for a while. Did you grow it mainly through like word of mouth, referrals? What was your way of growing it at that time?
Um, Back then, it turned into referrals. I'm still getting referrals, and I still go back to New York to shoot some
Yeah,
weddings. But I did bridal shows, and yeah, and I really hustled. I mean, you can't sit back and wait. I really hustled to get the leads. Besides the bridal shows and stuff, a little bit of Facebook ads and really, trying. I guess
yeah.
what it is. And obviously going after referrals and creating relationships with the venues and all the different vendors, and taking every opportunity and just kind of seizing it.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Now, what did it look like when when you knew you were moving to Tennessee and you had to scale your business pretty much from scratch in Tennessee? What were some of the key business strategies that you were focused on that time? Before the move, maybe after you moved, etc.
Well, obviously I joined the program. Basically knowing it was, going to be a completely new situation.
Yeah.
Born and raised in New York, and now we're moving to, Nashville, Tennessee, and knowing I'd have to start completely from scratch. I mean, it terrified me,
Yeah.
But, meeting you guys and, going through the program and, learning all this stuff. And I joined the program in March, and then that was right when the pandemic started happening. So I always say, thank you for you guys for, you know, helping me through the pandemic, giving me
Yeah.
homework. Yeah, absolutely. Giving me homework, and it kind of, I have a habit of like binging things. So I say that I binge listened to and did the homework and put my all into it.
Yeah.
And then, I was visiting, my sister lives down in the Nashville area. So, for the year prior or so, I would come down and try to make the connections. I was still doing the, engagement sessions, giveaways before I even moved down. So kind of just trying to, plant my feet here.
So often it seems like what helped plant the feet the quickest when it came to before you went to Tennessee, or in the beginnings of when you went to Tennessee, was a lot of ads, running a lot of contests and stuff to build that fan base, because no one knows you at this point. I do remember, like, you would even, when it came to when you're running ads and you would have these engagement sessions booked, even before you made the move, you're working with couples in Tennessee. That way you can really start building that fan base even before you got there. Is that kind of what it looked like and everything?
Absolutely. And even with the pandemic, things would kind of, open back up for a week. And I kind of like seized that week to, come down here and, do a few engagement sessions and that kind of thing. But that's another thing. I remember my family saying, "Why are you doing all these giveaways?
Yeah.
You're better than that. You quit giving away so much stuff." But I mean, it worked.
Yeah.
It totally worked.
And that's the thing. It's especially when no one knows about you. You have to think about offers that is going to get a lot of people in the door. And you can always frame those things in a way that keeps your brand as a luxury brand. They still see you as a high-end brand. But we just got to get people in the door. It's kind of like, I like to use this example, where it's kind of like testing a car. Let's say you were in the market for a supercar. You wanted to get a Lamborghini or something like that. Like, imagine if you weren't sure between a Lamborghini and a Bugatti or something like that, and they didn't allow you to test drive it when it was important for you to figure out what was the car that you wanted. And it's kind of the same thing when it comes to maybe a free guide you might offer in an ad, a contest you might doing within an ad, or maybe an ad bringing people to like a Facebook group. It's like getting them to a place where they can get a taste of your high-end brand, so they can even know about you, build that trust in you, all that type of stuff. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And I kept it true to brand.
Exactly.
People were saying, just go out and just shoot, do what you got, just shoot. And I'm like, I want to keep it on my brand. I wanted my husband to come and help me hold the light. I actually had somebody, I kind of mentored her, and she would come and hold my light because that is my brand. It's not the light and airy and all that. I wanted to stay on brand with that. And if that wasn't what they were looking for, then we weren't a good fit.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. So a lot of people end up in this situation. If a photographer who was, say, moving to a new state like you did, or for some reason they just had to start from scratch all over again, what would be a few steps you would tell them to do to quickly build momentum in their business as well?
Well, it really worked for me to do the Facebook ads and to meet people. And, another thing too is I didn't have any Nashville, anything for my website. So now I'm going and doing, doing engagement sessions to where I can put the keywords on my website. Engagement session, and creating the credibility to where, somebody's like, oh, looking for an engagement photographer or looking for a wedding photographer, for downtown Nashville, a venue downtown. I could send them to my, my link or whatever to, engagement session I did downtown with the different twinkly lights and that kind of stuff. So creating credibility.
So first off, ads to quickly build that momentum, get attention directly to engaged couples. And I was talking to this with Ballman recently after the podcast I did with him, and it's something I always knew, but it really kind of set in. And it was like, right now, literally, Facebook and Instagram ads are literally the only paid traffic platform right now where you can actually directly target newly engaged couples. Like everything else, TikTok, Google, YouTube, still you can attract newly engaged couples, but you have to kind of test a lot of the keywords, a lot of the hashtags where they might be, but you don't know. With Facebook and Instagram, you can literally type in newly engaged couples and run an ad.
Within 6 months and all that stuff. Yeah.
Exactly. It's great. It's insane. It's pretty much a cheat code. Pretty much a cheat code. And then you were saying keywords. Were you talking about like SEO particularly?
Yes. I mean, I don't know a ton about it, and obviously I've outsourced it. But trying to get a little bit like, doing the guessing work before I outsourced it. Nashville engagement photographer, at Big Springs Park, and then do a little snippet, I guess, about Big Springs Park, and then actually, not tagging them, but putting a keyword and doing a link and trying to build that up.
Yeah. Awesome. So pretty much the steps would be Facebook ads, work on building that SEO, and making sure, especially in those beginning stages, at least maybe like those first 6 months, you're actually working with a lot of couples in those engagement sessions to really build that trust and everything.
Absolutely.
Is that correct?
And
awesome.
90% of the weddings I've gotten down here, I mean, we haven't even been here 2 years yet.
Yeah.
I've been from the engagement session giveaways.
Yeah.
I think everyone but one down here has been from that. The other one I met at an airport. You know what I mean? So
that's awesome.
I'll always be talking. I always have your cards, and I'm a people person, so it's easy for me.
Often, what's the average price point that you're normally charging for weddings as well? Average or range as well?
Yeah, I mean, obviously I haven't increased that, but, I thought when we moved to Tennessee and starting all over again that I had to start, at the bottom again, I guess. But once I stayed true, so it's about, my last one I booked at $5,200.
Nice. Good stuff. And that's considered like mid to high, around in that $5,000 price point. Because a lot of people think that if you do contests, if you do these free guides, or if you maybe run ads, that you'll only attract low tier people. But 100% not true. Like if you frame everything and you brand everything in a way that is luxury, in a way that is high end, and you meet with these couples and you give them an experience, and you're making sure you're picking the right people as well through this experience, you can find those mid to higher tier clients all the time. But I love that.
Yeah.
So, what were you about to say? Sorry.
And then there were some that, they really wanted to work with me. It maybe was not in their budget, so we worked on something, and I did, 4 hours. To where I was still able to work with them, and 4 hours for $2,800, I'll take it.
Yeah, love that. Now I'm gonna also show some of your website and everything as we talk about this. But you recently, rebranded your company. How did you rebrand? What was the goal in that change as well? And as you kind of break that down on kind of the mission, the look, the type of ideal client you wanted to change and shift to, I'll kind of show your website and everything as well. But yeah, how did you rebrand? What was the goal in that change?
Well, I think the rebranding came from really wanting my website to, I guess I used to be worried that I wanted it to like attract every client. So my website kind of had the barn wedding, then it had the city, and then it had, and once I learned that you can be totally true to your style. Yeah. And those are the clients you want to attract. And then, actually working with Crystal on the branding, the words, getting the words right, the epic, the romantic. I mean, those are all the words that I wanted to, describe my wedding website.
Love that. Beautiful work as well. Love the changes that you've made on your website. How impactful did you find the change, the non-visuals, the words, the copy, and really refining those on your website. How has that affected you as well?
Oh, 100%. I mean, something as simple, I got to thinking, I'm sick of people saying, oh, I got a shot list for you. And I'm like, are you kidding me? I've been doing this 20 years. I don't need your damn shot list. So we actually put that in the wording. I go beyond the traditional shot list to capture everybody unique, everybody, in the romantic way. So, yeah, even putting that on there, yes, am I losing the ones that are like, oh my gosh, I want to be totally in control. I want to give her a shot list. I want these shots. Am I technically, it could be losing them? Yes. But I could be gaining the ones that, in my opinion, are the higher end ones that don't want to worry about that crap.
Yeah. Love your work, by the way. I remember, and I love how you do your off-camera flash as well. I remember at the WLMA retreat, the last one we did in Destin, Florida, when everyone started seeing your work, they're just like, oh my word. And what was so funny, because like as you're doing these shots and like, lighting, you look so casual. You're just kind of talking. No, you're putting the light over here, and then suddenly we see the pictures. They're like, holy crap, these are absolutely stunning.
Thank you. Yeah, it's I guess become second nature, but again, I invested. That was actually from the
retreat in Destin.
And I mean, it looks nothing like anybody else's, but that's okay. That's my style.
Yeah, that's awesome. Who inspired you when it came to developing this style as well?
Oh gosh, I became a mentoree. I never can say that right, but my mentor was Scott Robert Lim.
Ah, okay.
And you need to check out his work. Lighting. I mean, I didn't know anything about off-camera flash.
Yeah.
And it was on Creative Live. I took some of his lighting courses and, had the teddy bear sitting in my living room with my off-camera lighting trying to figure it out. And I have the personality, if I want to figure it out, I'm going to. I guess it's obsessive. I go to sleep thinking, oh, that didn't quite look right on the teddy bear's cheek. But then I invested. I mean, I think it was 2017. I look back, I invested almost $10,000. I went it sounds like poor me because I went to Hawaii to learn.
Yeah.
But I invested. I saw it as, I guess leveling up. And I still talk to Scott Robert Lim, and I still send him images, and he still critiques them. And that continues to make me better.
Yeah, I love that as well, that you, like most people, they won't even buy like a $500, $1,000 program to like work on their photography or work on their business and stuff. But I love that you're like, dropping 10 grand, I'm going to up level my photography at that point there. And that personality trait of like kind of being obsessed is so, I mean, I have it too, especially when it comes to like business and stuff. It's so important, one, for your craft as a photographer, if you really want to reach that realm where you're attracting, those higher end clients, and two, as like business, because there's so many things to learn and it's hard. And sometimes really boring. Like, I mean, when there's things that I've wanted to learn where I'm just like, crap, it's going to be so boring going through like these things, reading about this, but it's the only way. If you want to build a business, you want to be able to scale, you have to kind of be really relentless and just kind of like, I'm going to learn this, figure it out no matter what and everything. And I've seen that in your journey as well, which is awesome.
Totally. Yeah. And that's it. It's one of those things, like my husband said, when you put your mind to something, you do it.
Exactly.
Besides exercising. Diet and exercise kind of goes to the wayside because I'm learning my lighting,
Yeah.
It's prioritized. But
exactly.
when I put my mind to, achieving, I mean, we moved here and I know that, I also added the Boudoir, which we were going to talk about. We moved here, we haven't been here 2 years. I've added Boudoir and I have a studio.
Yeah.
I mean, I never thought that.
That's amazing progress, because most people I talk to, Not in the WLMA. Most people I talk to, like, they don't hit those like 6-figure years and stuff until years or never. And it's just like this constant thing of not doing the right things, or maybe they're kind of on the right track of like the right things, but they're really not pushing it, taking to that next level. And you have to get stubborn with like, I'm learning this, I'm doing this, and I'm mastering it. And you have to fall in love with that game, pretty much.
Oh, it is a game. I love it.
It is a game. It's a never-ending game of problem solving, because, you know, if you get to a point where, if you get into the mindset where, you know, of just the results are important, but it's an end result of falling in love with that game of consistently grinding, problem solving, learning new things. Because I've been, you know, learning and doing entrepreneurship and business for like over 10 years now, and it never stops.
Yeah.
It never stops. And
That.
exactly,
Yeah,
just like you have to fall in love with like your craft of photography, you have to fall in love with the same thing in marketing and sales, all that type of stuff.
Yes. And then when you get to the point where, like, I had it to where I thought I had to be good and achieve at everything. And then you finally get to the point where, you know, after doing it for so long, where you're like, okay, that's not my strong suit. You know, let me outsource that.
100%.
Or I could sit and, you know, obsess for, you know, weeks and weeks behind the computer, and it's like my time's worth more than that. So I guess learning what I'm good at and what I'm not, and being able to, you know, outsource the stuff I'm not good at, or, you know, that I don't love. I mean, some stuff you don't love, you have to push through, but then at some point it's like, I don't love that. I've tried pushing through, and I'm not going to do it anymore.
100%. Now, one of our students in the WLMA actually had this question, and I wanted to ask you this as well. So she said, "Hi, WLMA community. My husband and I are thinking through the idea of me offering boudoir photo shoots exclusively for our brides, so we can generate additional revenue from boudoir album sales and add value for our couples. Any tips on how to get started? Like, did everyone start with professional models or do a model call?" So yeah, Charlene, what would your advice be for her?
So I mean, I started that way. I started, you know, I knew that I wanted to get in. I knew that I needed portfolio pieces.
Yeah.
So back, I mean, years ago, I would start adding it at no charge to my brides if they were interested.
Yeah.
So that's how it started. And yeah, so if it means doing the model calls, you know, get yourself a portfolio. And the big thing for me was I took a workshop. Well, as with anything, you take the workshops, and if there's models or whatever, you use that for your portfolio.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a win-win to have portfolio pieces.
Exactly. So pretty much build a portfolio in any means, whether if that's a model call, whether if that's working with people you know, going to a styled shoot or a workshop that can help you provide that and everything.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Yes. And I definitely, I'm at the point now where I am adding it as, you know, you book by such and such, I will give you a free boudoir shoot. Well, they're coming in, and now I don't include the images anymore.
Yeah.
So they're coming in and they're loving them, and they want to get an album for their, you know, fiance, and I just added $2,000 to their, you know, wedding price, I guess, when you look at it that way.
Yeah. That's awesome. So kind of making it more seamless with it adding into the weddings and everything. So it's
absolutely.
like, yeah, it's like they want an album, we'll just add that to that wedding package, so it becomes less processes coming through.
And I found it to be like kind of chunking it down. I mean, this is just one example. I did the free engagement session giveaway. We did it, and it was, you know, a weird winter day in Tennessee. And then 6 months later, she said, well, it's our, you know, 5-year anniversary of dating. You know, how much would you charge to do another one? So I went and did another one. They paid for that. And then they booked their wedding. I'm actually going to California, San Diego in a few weeks.
That's awesome.
They booked their wedding and paid good money for that. And then she did her boudoir session 2 weeks ago, and that she spent an extra $2,600.
Let's go.
So, I mean, they had the free session from the ad. Then they paid me another $700 for another engagement session. Then they booked their wedding, which was, I don't know, $4,800.
Yeah.
And then she just spent almost $3,000 on her boudoir session.
Let's go. And those aren't low ticket prices at all. And really shows, 1 second, someone's trying to call me. Really
okay.
shows like how amazing the framing is. Like you can give certain things as complimentary, but if you frame things, you can really turn that into a luxury high-end thing, get those high ticket prices as well, which is absolutely awesome. One of my favorite things to see, because it breaks the poor mindset that a lot of people have when it comes to marketing in those types of ways, and frames things into branding, copywriting, how important those things are to get what you want from your business and everything.
100%. It's everything put together.
Yeah, absolutely.
Being true to your style.
Yes.
Like I said, I thought I kind of was following trends. I'd be like, oh, everybody's doing it this way. Let me buy a preset to do it that way. And then, oh, now this is popular. And when I finally was like, everything that I was doing wedding-wise and boudoir-wise was starting to look similar. And I was like, that's my style.
Yeah.
And sticking
That's
to
awesome.
Sticking to it.
How long did it take you to that sort of develop and see that?
Oh, a long time. And I don't
Sorry, what would you say?
I said a long time, and I don't want to discourage anybody, but it's also my personality. I'm a people pleaser.
Yeah.
So I thought, oh my gosh, the trend is really muted. No greens, and I'm going to show some of that on my website. So, it was constantly trying to follow trends and keep people interested. But when I finally found my own style, and a lot of that has to do with my off-camera, flash and that kind of stuff. That's my style. And I'm sticking true to it. That's when everything comes together. So it took me quite a few years, but, that's okay. It doesn't have to take everybody,
100%. And that's why often when we work with like very new photographers, where it's like you can tell they have an eye, but maybe they've only shot like 3 weddings or something. I'll usually be like, I know we talk about branding a lot in the program. I know we talk about niche and finding that niche within a niche, but I want you to start off broad and allow time for things to narrow out, because you're new. You're going to see a lot of changes happen on what you truly want within this year and next year.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's like that way, if you go too narrow now as like a very new photographer, I made this mistake before. I went super narrow with my style of like photography, then I realized that like, oh, I don't even like that anymore, and I had to like re-edit everything, change everything, redo how I did all of that. But if you're super new and you start kind of broad, knowing that a lot of things are going to change and what you truly want within the next few years, you can almost make a little bit more gradual refinement to that.
Yes, and I didn't do it gradual. I did it. And this is dating myself, but I did the whole everything black and white and the flowers in red, because that's what everybody was doing. I laugh at that now, but I mean, that was like, I can do this. I know Photoshop. I can do this. Well, some things you can do, but you shouldn't do.
Yeah, 100%. Now, I know personal growth and elevating your mentality has been a huge factor in the growth of your business. It wasn't just strategies at all, but it had to do with the growth of yourself at the same time. What elements have helped your mindset and growth?
Oh, this is crazy. And you're almost bringing tears to my eyes, because I didn't start working on my mindset until we moved to Tennessee. And I think, I still had the hardness to myself and a little bit of the, just going to say cockiness, like, I've done this, I know how to do it. But when I finally started working on myself, and, I think I told you before, I read 19 books in, 2 months.
Yeah.
Which is a little overkill, because that's what I do. But when I started seeing the repetition in the different books, it started to make sense to me, and the whole journaling and, knowing it's okay that, some people won't like their style. It's okay that you go and do an engagement session and they don't book you. Before the work, the mindset work, I would be like, oh, I feel so used. They just use me for free pictures. Once I started looking at it different and feeling different, it made things so much easier.
Yeah, I hear you on that. So it seemed like really building that mindset so you can really see what your true worth was as well. Is that correct?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, not that I was having marriage problems before. That's not what I'm trying to say. It
Yeah.
just improved everything in my entire life.
Yeah. One of my favorite quotes one of my mentors told me was, he was like, we often don't have business problems. We have personal problems that affect our business.
100%.
100%. And that's why, like, even a long time ago when I was struggling in my wedding photography business, I wasn't getting the leads, I wasn't getting the clients that I needed. I look back now. One, I did need to learn more like strategies that actually helped. But two, I had so much personal issues that were holding me back. Like, I was a lot lazier than I really thought I was. I was so distracted. I wasn't focused. I thought I knew a lot more than I needed. I had a lot of self-sabotaging, 1 foot in, 1 foot out mental blocks that kept me from really pushing things forward. Is that kind of what your experience was as well?
100%. And I know we had the conversation that I thought, all the mindset work was kind of taboo. I was like, oh, I'm going to sit, in my living room and, do yoga or do whatever.
Yeah.
The whole Zen work. I thought that was kind of taboo growing up, a Christian and going to the church and, that kind of stuff. But,
Yeah.
it's come to my, I understand now you can be a Christian and you can get self-help. It doesn't have to be one or the other. So
Exactly.
when, I was looking at these books and, oh my gosh, well that's, taking me away from, no, it's not. It's enhancing your personality that God gave you.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. I put this one post in the group, and it kind of the way that I viewed mentality when it came to the business and everything as well is our bad habits, our traumas that maybe we haven't healed through, all those our laziness, all those different mentality things, or the ways that we look at life, our perspective or negative perspectives that we have in life, all works as a foundation, pretty much, of your business. And if you have a lot of those things that you need to work on and are still very rocky, and you try building a strong business on top of that with all these strategies that you need to learn on top of it, all this learning, all this hard work, all the rejections you're going to go through on top of that, the business is just going to shatter, pretty much.
And I
so,
remember
yeah.
not wanting to, it was like I had this thing where I was very negative.
Yeah.
And, I had the, if they want me, they'll find me for weddings. Who does that?
Yeah.
I had the anxiety, like, oh my gosh, I'm not even gonna, they've emailed me. Now I'm scared. Do they reject me? Like, it was yeah. And I learned there's tons of stuff, like you said, from your past that you bring into these things.
Yeah.
And I still deal with them. But
Yeah.
I've learned and I've healed so much to where it 100% affects, my business in a positive way now.
Yeah. Love that. Love that. Now getting a feel of this also. So you have a really amazing associate brand. A few questions. First one I wanted to ask is, what is an associate brand, first off? And could you explain why you built an associate brand for your business and how that worked and all that as well?
Well, I knew with my brand, getting more luxury.
Yeah.
I felt like I was leaving money on the table when somebody's budget was a little less. So I started an associate brand, and it was more of a budget end. Kind of like, okay, they don't, for their budget, they don't expect the world.
Yeah.
But I still have photographers that go out there and do a good job. And they're going to be
Exactly.
extremely happy. They're going to be, even blown away. like, wow, we had a, real low budget, but we still got amazing work. So,
So pretty much when a prospect comes to you and they realize that, oh, we can't afford $5,000 to $7,000 for a wedding, you're able to refer them to your other business where maybe it's $2,500, $3,500 and work with your associate photographers.
100%.
That's awesome.
And we're talking, I mean, this was several years ago, but, when we first started, and it goes back to how you start your business. When we first started, nobody had ever heard of, it was Vine wedding photography. Nobody had ever heard of Vine wedding photography. I mean, they'd heard of Charlene photography. So we started just like a brand new company. So we had to go in the first year at a much lower price because we needed portfolio pieces.
Yeah.
And, clients that actually had Vine wedding photography and not just, my associate shooters work getting in there, from years prior. I wanted to build it exclusively to weddings that we did under Vine wedding photography.
I see.
Then, when I say cheap, I mean cheap, like $1,500.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, raising it, the 2 years in a row, we were so busy. I'm like, okay, we're too cheap. And you know how that goes. We're too cheap. We can't do, 40 weddings a year. So then I raised it, almost doubled the prices and cut that in half. But at that point, we were starting to get referrals.
I see.
So it kind of, and, I can look back and say, wow, these things worked really great. At the time, it was just trial and error, really.
Yeah. Sometimes, for a lot of things, there's not a formula, and you're left with that, but you learn so much from that. And I guess from your experience, if someone wanted to do this, what are steps you could give to someone who desired to do the same thing? Like, what is the right timing to do that? Should they wait until they're already booked with their main business before they even think about something like this? Just kind of spit out some advice you'd have for someone interested in doing that.
I mean, I didn't wait till I was totally booked out. I just knew there was a market, and I wanted to get those those clients. I didn't like I was saying, I didn't want to leave money on the table. Just because they couldn't afford the $4,000, they could afford the $2,000, and that was $2,000 more than I would have had, obviously paying my shooters or whatever. But at the end of the day, that was more money than I would have had not doing that. And I knew, I'm like, I don't want to shoot 40 weddings a year, so I needed supplement income.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, I'm making, X amount, and that would have been, 6 weddings that I didn't have to shoot.
Exactly. Awesome. How much did you often pay your associates for those as well? What would be a good range for someone who's trying to figure out, all right, I'm going to maybe be charging $1,500, $2,500 maybe for these weddings. How much should I be paying my associates? What would be a range you'd advise?
So I had photographers that had done 1 or 2 weddings. So I looked at it almost as me mentoring them. And I explained that to them, that we did a lot of, styled shoots and everything that I organized for them so that they could have the portfolio.
Yeah.
I, critique the work, and I still critique it because they only want to get better. And that's how so I didn't pay them a ton, hourly, but they were the ones that wanted to build it, and they saw it as being paid to learn. So I started my lead photographers out at $50 an hour. Yeah. And then I had my second photographers at $25 an hour. Just enough to, and my second photographers didn't necessarily get raises. They, turned into lead photographers.
Exactly. Awesome. So you found people that were really in the place where they wanted that opportunity to learn, kind of like you had in New York, pretty much. 100%. That's awesome.
Yep.
Where did you find them? Were they usually college students? Yeah.
It started with one of my second photographers had worked for me for 3 years. And then I brought it up, this is what I'm thinking of doing. Of course, not doing things slowly. It was like, boom, I built my website from Wix
Yeah.
and hit the ground running. I decided in October I was going to do this, January, February, we did all the bridal shows.
Yeah.
So I guess I forgot your question. I'm sorry.
That's awesome, though. I mean, that's how I like to work, too. Especially, it's like, things will never be perfect, especially when you want to launch something. It's like, boom, launch it, see where it goes, see where you need to refine and everything.
100%. Just do it, as they say.
Exactly.
Did my Wix website look good? But no, but guess what? It was there to attract, I don't say budget clients, but clients who wanted good pictures but couldn't necessarily afford them. That's what that attracted, and that's what I wanted for that.
Exactly. Love that. And it kind of, when you're talking about just kind of quickly launching it, boom, launching that website from Wix and everything, kind of the mindset that I try to coach a lot of our students when they're building their funnels and everything, where, it's their first time doing this, building that automated email marketing series, and they're like, I want to have, all 12 weeks of emails like set up and everything already. I'm like, you're going to end up changing it. And so what I recommend, just do it manually for the next few weeks. See which emails in that series actually worked. Because you're going to be posting a lot of emails that the market does not resonate with.
Yep.
And then you end up going to have to redoing it. So figure out what actually works and then put it in the automation. And it's more of that kind of just like launch, know there's going to be mistakes, and be prepared to refine after that kind of a thing.
Oh, absolutely. Just, start somewhere.
Exactly. So now, photographers that are listening that are struggling in their businesses, what is one piece of advice you would give to photographers struggling in their business right now?
I guess, be patient. I mean, I'm the type that wants instant gratification. I mean, we're learning all about my personality today. And then I would get frustrated. And just be patient with it. Put the steps into place, and take your time with it. It's one of those with just do it, but also like you were saying, you don't need to do all 12 weeks, because then you're like rushing to get it done. You're asking people, what should I blog about? I did that. I didn't know. What should my email say? What should this? And kind of took everybody's ideas, which is a start, but
Exactly.
it's a good start. But, after a while, I'm like, okay, why did they send a blog out? How to, include your pets? I don't want to have people with their pets. I want people I love pets, but I want to have people who love the fashion aspect, you know? And so I had to go through and refine the wording. Copyright, like you were saying, is a huge thing.
Yeah.
Of finding the ideal clients.
Yeah, it's a really underrated skill set when it comes to your brand, when it comes to your email marketing, even like your Instagram posts and captions that you do. I've had ads that performed absolutely horrible. I change a headline. Literally, you wouldn't think that this little change in headline would do much. And then boom, the ad explodes. Or like students, they really refine like their brand. The visuals look good and everything, but they really refine, like they'll meet with Crystal. They'll really refine like what is actually said on their website, and they really start getting those higher end ideal clients. But it's such an important thing.
Oh, 100%. And like I said, being true to your brand.
Yeah.
And once you're true to your brand, like that is my style, that's what I want to do, then, the wording and all that can come into play to describe your style. Yeah. Instead of trying to describe, everybody, like, oh, I want to shoot everybody's wedding, whether you want to get in the field or whether you want to do this, to where now with Crystal's help, it's like that bold, romantic, epic. Even the wording doesn't say, I want to go in the field and shoot a barn.
Exactly.
But that also says, if you are in a field and it's a barn wedding, it's still going to be epic.
Yeah, 100%. What was the question I was going to ask? I need to edit this out.
Same thing earlier.
I had something I was going to say, and I forgot it. Let me see if it was
It'll be
important.
something else, and then 5 minutes later, you'll say, "Oh, I know what I was going to say," because that's what I do.
This is what I was going to say. I remember now.
There we go. There we go. When
There we
you
go.
ask,
Once you really find that brand as well, and you really know who your ideal client is, what their problems are, their unique problems are, what their desires are, everything about them and what they want, that creates content ideas right there in general.
Yep.
Because, you know, at first when you don't really have that, you're like, oh, I saw someone wrote a blog or email like this, like you're saying, I'll copy that. But when you really figure out, okay, this is who I am, this is who my ideal client is, this is everything about them, this is what they're struggling with, ooh, I'm going to write a blog about that. I'm going to write an email or a post about that. And you're able to really filter in those ideal clients, get them to resonate with you, your personal brand, all that type of stuff as well.
Exactly. And, you know, for instance, now you reminded me another blog. One of my last weddings, she was like, "Oh my gosh, you don't even know how much I appreciate, you know, you manage things, you helped with things. And you didn't want no damn shot list, and I'm glad you didn't, because that would have taken a lot of time for me to have to come up with. You know,
100%.
so anything, like you said, whatever they say of reasons that they loved working with you."
Exactly, exactly. Now, Charlene, where can we find you as well?
Yeah, so I'm on my website. I need to get better with social media. I always have to look like, what is my Facebook? But anyway, so Charlene Man Photography, just like that, www.charlenemanphotography.com. And then I'm on Instagram, Charlene Man Photography. And I also have my Boudoir, which is Honey Bacon Boudoir. And that's exactly how it is for online, and then that's how it is on Instagram.
Awesome. And that's 2 N's for the man, correct?
You got it, yes.
Perfect, perfect. I'll put that in the description of this YouTube video as well. But this was so good, Charlene. Glad we got to chat again. Excited to see you in March as well for our next event.
Yes, I'm excited as well already.
See you there.
Thank you.